As a bit of an aside here, I just had like 3 or 4 thoughts run through my mind when you brought up Anthony Beauvillier. I think personally, looking at the lineup right now, looking at what they could potentially add, which is hopefully a top 6 guy on the left side, I think the ideal spot for him would be the 13th forward. But is there a chance that we see him start the season as your first line left wing? I mean, that's a stretch. He's coming off of an awful season and honestly, a couple of rough seasons for Anthony Beauvillier. But we have seen the Penguins put worse up there on the first line with Crosby. Need I remind everybody of Dominic Simone and his stints up on the top line? And honestly, even Evan Rodriguez, before he actually, put it all
Awesome.
together and
Yeah.
became what he is now, he was given a lot of opportunity on the top line. If they are determined to have Drew O'Connor be a third line left wing, which is honestly the best role for him where he can take advantage of matchups. And I think that's why Mike Sullivan wants him there, if possible. Is there really a chance that we see Anthony Beauvillier get some time with Crosby, at least early in the season? I'm not saying that I am putting my foot down for this to actually happen, but I'm seeing that as a possibility, whereas before I didn't even think of that.
You're okay, because there is a pattern there. Let's also not forget, heading into last season, the Penguins didn't know if they were going to have Jake Gensel for opening night. They had just kind of restocked their depth with a bunch of AHL, NHL tweeners. And who started on Sidney Crosby's left wing at training camp? Vinny Hinostroza, who ended up not playing a single game with Sidney Crosby. So I wouldn't be shocked to see Beauvillier start there in camp, maybe get some preseason action up there, see where that takes him. I doubt it goes into the season. But also, if you're mentioning Beauvillier, I wouldn't be shocked if one of the young prospects gets that sort of chance. Like you said, Dom Simone, or Evan Rodriguez wasn't a prospect, but again, a tweener guy at the time. None of it would shock me because the Penguins have shown, and Mike Sullivan has shown, and Sidney Crosby's shown, this is a sort of, at least at this stage, this specific stage of preseason, training camp, early season, is a pattern that they'll throw not randos, but sometimes pretty random people up next to Sidney Crosby and see how it works. Again, I think we've had this discussion before. Some of Crosby's best line mates, aside from Jake Gensel and Chris Kunitz, kind of, are who really?
They weren't superstars.
Like Pascal Dupuis, great player, great face for the locker room, not the kind of guy you would peg next to Sidney Crosby. Same goes for Kunitz for the most part. He's a great player, again, a great locker room guy, but in a vacuum, would you really play him with Sidney Crosby? And same goes for Brian Rust right now. I mean, great player and obviously a great locker room guy. On another team, is he on their first line? Probably not. He's going to contribute probably as a second line player, depending on the team, up to the first. But because it's the Penguins and because it's Sidney Crosby, you're throwing not anybody up there, but guys that can keep up, and you never know who that could be, especially when it comes to untapped potential like the prospects the Penguins have right now, or even Anthony Beauvillier, who's coming in on a new team.
Yeah, this might involve a lot of moving and shaking that I don't think the Penguins might want to do, but you could always put Raquel on the left side there, bump down Rust, and play a guy like Valtteri Puustinen on the top line. There's a shot of that too. I mean, Puustinen was one of those early training camp experiments a couple years back where he got the first week or two with Crosby and Jake Gensel. So you never know. Obviously, we have to wait and see what happens at training camp here in a couple of months. But I do think that whatever happens at the top of the left side, unless it's Beauvillier, in which case I take back what I'm saying about it being a biggest strength. But if you look at the middle six then of Bunting, second line, and Drew O'Connor specifically third line, we can leave the first and fourth out of it for right now. That middle six left side, I think, is their third biggest strength behind center top six center, excuse me, and the right side of the defense in its entirety, because I think that that leaves very little questions with Jack St. Ivany on the third pairing.